Hello everyone. Today we are talking about the great debate here in this new age of teaching, and that is digital versus printable products. Is it worth still making printable products? Should everything be digital? We're gonna talk all about it. But first, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. All right, friends, so in 2020, we went suddenly online, and all of those beautiful worksheets and centers activities and matching games that we previously had that were selling really well were no longer selling at all, as people went virtual and were doing distance learning, just all the things. Then we came back and everyone is teaching a different way. You might have taught different ways all year. You might have taught many different ways. I am currently trying to figure out the whole teaching online and in person at the same time, and then teaching online only half the time, and it's a hot mess central. This is a great topic. Now, first of all, I'm going to cheat a little bit and tell you, if you're looking for me to say you must do digital or you must do printable, I'm not going to tell you for sure either way. It's really and truly up to you, but we are going to talk about some things that are going to help you figure out whether you should be making a digital or a printable product, specific to the product, specific to all the things, and we're going to talk about benefits of both and all those good things. With the whole pandemic, everything changing, some interesting things happened. Specifically, all of those objections that people had against using digital products were now gone because you had to use them. Before, people would say, oh, I just don't have time to figure out Google Slides. Oh, I would rather just do a worksheet. I don't know how to use Google Classroom. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. And that whole hurdle is gone. So I truly believe that from now on in education, digital is going to be a lot more prominent. That being said, printable is still good. There's a lot of things you can do with printable resources that you can't do with digital just because of the nature of what it is. I have tons of matching games and trivia things and centers activities and stuff like that that work so much better as printable resources. Also, from my perspective, I teach music. So even though all of our kids have access to technology in the school and they're taking their laptops home at the moment, when they come into my room, if they ever get to come back into my room, it's going to be different because they probably won't have their laptops. I have a couple of iPads, but I don't have much, and it's not their Chromebook they're logged into. So printable is still probably going to be very prevalent in my classroom simply because we may not have the access to technology in my classroom. Or even if we do, it might frankly just be a lot easier to do a worksheet than to try to get them logged on my iPads or get them to bring their Chromebooks or whatever. Now, I'm teaching online and in the teacher's classroom, so I haven't crossed that hurdle yet. We'll see how it goes when we get there, but it's still something to think about. The other thing for me is that when we have a sub, I want things to be as easy as possible. And although the teaching community has gotten really used to digital, substitutes might not have. Now, some have, but others, we have a lot of retired teachers and stuff like that, and they weren't around during the whole distance learning and stuff like that, so they might not be as comfortable with the digital as we are. This might change now, but previously I was told that subs were not allowed to access my computer. So if they couldn't access my computer, they couldn't do literally anything online. Now, again, that might change. That might just be my school. Actually, I have subbed at a school that did let me use their computer, so I know that that is not always the case, but it is still something that you will want to think about. So in that case, for me, printable sub plans are still where it's at. That's, again, going to be different depending on where you are, what you're doing, all of those things, but printable still has a place, even though digital is around. So the short answer is both of them are still useful. You need to figure out what you want to do for your audience. The other thing is that, I don't know about y'all, but my district purchased this huge learning management system that's basically Google Classroom, but not nearly as good. And they have already signed a contract for the next 3 or 5 years or something like that. And they did this huge training that basically meant that we were going to be using this system for quite a long time, which means they're expecting us to continue using it. So teachers, at least in my district, are expected to continue doing the digital thing. And again, once we got used to digital, a lot of people realized it's so much easier. There's a lot of self-grading activities and just stuff like that that can work really easily. So the short answer is I'm not going to tell you one or the other is better, but they're different. They're both valuable, and you need to figure out what you want to do for your products and for your audience. So what I mean by that is figure out what your audience needs. Like, you know, if you are doing a lot of younger kids stuff like kindergarten, they need a lot of handwriting practice. So those are gonna still be important. For me, you know, printable sub-plans are still selling. They're still doing well. I have a lot of printable resources that are still doing really well because people still need those printable resources a lot of the time. But that, again, is specific to my grade. If you're teaching, you know, like high school, then you might be in a totally different situation. Your audience might be in a totally different situation. So I would ask your audience, if you have one, and ask them, hey, who's teaching how? Do you prefer digital? Do you prefer printable? Just all of those different things can really make it different. The other thing to look through is your data. So if you have both printable and digital resources, I would look and see what is selling well. Is one outselling the other? Are they both selling pretty equally? What is doing the best? Personally, for me, right this second, it's definitely digital is where it's at. They're selling so much better. I don't know if that'll keep up, so I'm just kind of trying to keep an eye on the data as we progress through the rest of the school year, and that's kind of where we are. But you should go and look at yours. If you don't have both, I would suggest making whichever one you don't have and then seeing if it sells. I would even suggest making a, like, if you have a printable resource that does well, making a digital version of that same type of resource to see if it sells just as well as the other one does. Give it a few weeks, see how they rank, and then decide whether you want to go dive into digital or keep the printable or whatever. Now, other things to consider in the great digital versus paper debate would be how your resource is working the best. So if you have an idea for something and it only works printably, do it printable. If it only works digitally, do it digitally. If it works with both, then maybe you try both and see which one sells better, or maybe you try the one that you prefer. Those are all fine things to do. The second thing I wanted to remind you of is just to think about who you're serving. So again, if you're serving, ask your audience, talk to them, figure out what they need, see what's best for them. If they need handwriting practice, then printable is going to be great. If they, you know, need something just be as easy as humanly possible, printable might be the best way to do it. If they need something that can be graded easily, then digital might be the way. So it just depends on what your audience is looking for. And the last thing to keep in mind is what's already available. We've had years and years and years where pretty much the only things available were printable, which means that there's no really good opportunity to create digital resources. So if you're thinking about a particular product, maybe you go and see what is available and see if it's missing one side or the other. So is there like a lot of digital and you can make a printable, or if there's a lot of printable, make a digital. It's probably going to be that way, that there's a lot of printable and you can make a digital version. If you can make something that is different than what other people are doing, it's going to sell better because it is unique and it has, especially with that digital, you can put digital in the title and it'll really help it to rank in search. So do think about what's already available on TPT and even what's already available in your shop and see if you can kind of expand upon that. The last thing I wanted to bring up is that TPT did create their easel, which if you haven't seen my tutorial about that, you can check it out. I will link it down below. Easel is the new version of TPT digital activities, and basically it's a digital layer over top of existing PDFs. This means that there's a lot of your activities that teachers can access that they already have access to because they already purchased, or that you can upload and they can do it that way. So this is another way to take your printable things and make them digital. Because of this, I wouldn't ever suggest doing the exact same thing, digital and printable. But even with that being said, I still think there is a place for like purely digital resources. First of all, there's a learning curve when it comes to TPT's easel because it is new. Secondly, honestly, like if you think about, most of our PDFs are tall versus digital works a lot better long ways. Vertical and horizontal. I went to school. And so I wouldn't create the same resource, but do bear in mind that it is new, it is available, you can tell your audience about it, but some people might not be comfortable with it just yet. So with all that in mind, I can't guarantee that one is better than the other. I am personally leaning more towards digital in Becca's music room. However, in Becca's Bible class, I have noticed that mostly what's selling is printable. digital. I have made a couple of digital things just to see how they would do, and they haven't done nearly as well. And I think, again, that comes back to my audience. My Bible class one is really geared towards like Sunday school teachers and, you know, like homeschool and stuff like that, where it's just easier to print some stuff out, especially like Sunday school teachers, stuff like that. Like, they don't have technology at church, so we just, I mean, like, it exists, but like we don't have computers in the classroom. Anyway, so that goes back again to your audience. Digital is doing really well in Becca's music room, but it's not doing well in Becca's Bible class simply because of the audience and the functionality of the product. So keep those in mind as you're thinking about what you're doing. That's where we currently are. I'm focusing mostly on digital. With that being said, I already had a ton of printable resources, so there's that too. You know, again, back to what's already available. I already had a lot of printable resources available. Digital was what I was missing, and so digital is what I'm leaning into, and digital is what's selling at the current moment, so that's what I'm leaning into. I would love to know your opinions down below. Are you leaning more towards printable? Are you leaning more towards digital? What is your audience purchasing? What's doing better in your store? Leave all that stuff down below. First of all, because I'm super curious. Secondly, because it'll help all of the other people watching this video. And third, because I love to know who made it all the way to the end of the video. If you did make it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single view and every single subscriber. So if you haven't, click the subscribe button down below, especially if you want to learn more about Teachers Pay Teachers stuff in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!